You see, life has the tendency to challenge us at times we don't expect. It doesn't knock on the door and ask, hey, are you up for this challenge? No, it bursts in when you're exhausted, when you're stretched to the breaking point, when you feel like you've already given everything you have. And during those times, the suffering feels insufferable. It feels unjust. It feels like life is breaking you. I want you to hear me right now. Pain is never without purpose. Consider this. The strongest muscles in your body only become stronger when they're forced, when they're pulled apart, when they're strained past what's comfortable. With no resistance, there is no strength. With no pain, there is no growth. What you refer to as breaking is usually the same thing that's constructing you. Depends on whether or not you decide to consider it punishment or preparation. I've talked to thousands of individuals who have been through things you can't even imagine: loss, betrayal, sickness, financial ruin, and every single one of them had a decision to let the pain define them or to let the pain refine them. The ones who get up, the ones who walk away stronger, aren't the ones who had it best. The ones who chose, this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. I'm not asking you to love the pain. No one wants to be heartbroken. No one wants to see their business fail. No one wants to be stuck in a hospital bed or receive that call that turns their world around. But in those precise moments when you think you are reaching your breaking point is the moment that often sets the seeds for your future strength. Some of you are weathering storms at the moment. You're wondering, why me? Why now? And I understand, I've been there. What if you shifted the question? What if, rather than wondering why, you began to wonder what? What is this hurt attempting to instruct me? What aspect of me is being called to develop? If this is not life attempting to shatter me, but God attempting to mold me, because God's justice doesn't always look like immediate relief. Sometimes it looks like endurance. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like you discovering a strength you didn't even know was inside you. And the truth is, you don't discover that strength on the mountaintop. You discover it in the valley, in the darkness, in the moments when your back is against the wall. When you begin to perceive pain as meaningful, picture changes. Suddenly the betrayal becomes the lesson you learned that taught you discernment. The failure becomes the door that nudged you to a greater opportunity. Sickness becomes the wake, up call that convinced you how valuable life actually is. The struggle becomes the very thing that shaped your character. And here's the thing, when you know pain serves a purpose, stop fleeing from it. You stop numbing it. You stop denying it exists. Instead, you lean into it with bravery. You meet it head on, knowing that on the other side of that pain is a version of you that is smarter, braver, kinder, more vibrant. So if you're convinced life is breaking you at the moment, listen to me, it's not over. It may be the start of the best chapter of your life. Pain is not evidence that God has left you. Pain is evidence you're being stretched, purified, and set up for something amazing. And sooner or later, be looking back on the thing that nearly destroyed you and see it was the same thing that constructed you into who you were meant to be. And when life knocks you around, initial response most of us have is to wonder, why me? Why did my relationship deteriorate? Why did I lose my job? Why did this person betray me? Why did this illness fall into my lap? That's a human question. I'm going to give it to you straight. It's also a trap, because why me is the one that keeps you mired in the suffering. It keeps you rooted in the issue rather than moving you towards the answer. When you're saying, why me? You're looking back, you're reliving the unfairness, the loss, the failure, and you're reopening the wound rather than letting it heal. You're searching for answers that can never be found. Sometimes the persons who hurt you can't tell you why. Sometimes the situations you're presented with can't be conveniently explained. And here's the tough reality. Sometimes life doesn't provide you with a good reason for why. But there is a different question that can turn everything around, not why me, but what's next? What do I do with this pain? What step do I take now? What part of myself is being called to expand? Because that question doesn't bind you to the past. It leads you into the future. It gives you momentum rather than paralysis. Consider the greatest breakthroughs in history. They didn't originate from individuals who lounged about exclaiming, why me? Merged from individuals who rose up against failure, rejection, heartache, and inquired, what's next? Edison didn't cry, why me? Following thousands of unsuccessful light bulb experiments, he inquired, What's the next method I can utilize? And Nelson Mandela didn't spend 27 years in a cell asking, why me? He said, what's next for my people? What's next for freedom? And when he emerged from prison broken, he was unstoppable. The transformation from why me to what's next is the transformation from victim to creator. Victims remain stuck in the narrative of what occurred. Creators pose, where am I now and what's possible? What can I construct? What can I learn? That question draws you into action, and action is what drives change. Perhaps you lost a loved one and the pain is so hard to bear. Continue in why me? The pain will overwhelm you, but if you move to what's next, perhaps you begin paying tribute to their memory by living more, by loving more, spending your time in a manner that brings them honor. Perhaps your company tanked and you're stuck in debt, shame, and doubt. Why me will keep you stuck in regret. What's next could be the launch of a new company, a new concept, a new plan that pushes you further than you ever thought possible. And perhaps your body is deteriorating. You may linger in the anger, despair, the why me. Or you may ask, what's next for my health? What new habits? What new attitude? What new level of gratitude for every breath I get to take? This isn't about not allowing pain. This isn't about faking things didn't occur. This is about not allowing pain to be the period at the end of your story. When you look up and you ask, what's next? You turn the period into a comma. You say, this is not the end. This is the beginning of a new chapter. And here is the gorgeous part. As you change your question, you change your energy. You get out of trying to find excuses to feel powerless and get into finding possibilities to move into your power. You begin to see the possibility that was obscured under the debris. You begin to live again. So I want you to ask yourself this very moment, where are you in your life where you've been stuck repeating the question, why me? Where have you been reliving the pain, the betrayal, the loss? What would be different if today you changed your question to, what's next? Because the reality is, why me keeps you anchored to the past. What's next lets in your future. Your future, that next chapter, is where your strength, your healing, your redemption, your breakthrough are waiting. There are times in life when you glance about and it seems as if the world is turned on its head. Good people get hurt. Honest people get cheated. You give your best. You pour out your heart. You try to do what's right, and still you get knocked down. Meanwhile, it seems like everyone else is doing shortcuts, lying, cheating, and how are they the ones who are coming out ahead? Those times you can't help but wonder, this is not right. Where is justice here? I want you to listen to me. Justice is real, but it doesn't always show up on your schedule. Because you can't see it at first doesn't mean it ain't coming. There's a higher order at work that we can't see, something that I call God's justice. It might not arrive in the form that you anticipated. It might not be as quick as you'd like it to be, but it is certain. You see, we are in a culture of instant gratification. We want things now. If we do the work, we want the payoff now. If someone does us wrong, we want to see them punished tomorrow. But the world doesn't work that way. Justice doesn't work that way. God doesn't work that way. Sometimes the wait is not denial. It's divine timing. Passage I cling to that states, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. And that's the truth. Every action sows a seed. You can't always see the harvest immediately. The law of sowing and reaping never fails. If you've been sowing love, integrity, faithfulness, hard work, don't you dare believe for an instant that it's wasted. Your harvest will come. If someone else has been planting deceit, betrayal, or selfishness, they will reap the harvest of their seeds as well. That's not your responsibility to make them do. That's God's. Here's the trap. When you begin to worry about someone else's unfair advantage, you take your eyes off your own development. You begin to think about what they did to you rather than what's available for you. And you lose your power. That's why learning about God's justice is so empowering, because it sets you free from bitterness. It sets you free from revenge. It sets you free from having to control all the outcomes. Met people who held on to anger for decades, waiting for life to make it right. And in the process, they lost their joy, their relationships, their health. Don't let that be you. The injustice you suffered steal the life you still have left. Because while you're waiting for others to get what they deserve, you might be missing out on the blessings God already has lined up for you. God's justice isn't simply punishing the bad, it's promoting the good. It's taking what was intended to destroy you and using it for your benefit. How many times have you gazed into the past at a hurtful circumstance and later came to understand it was a setup to something better? Treachery that devastated you later rerouted you into a healthier relationship, a more authentic friend group. That position you lost turned out to be the one that compelled you to find your real calling. Moment of seeming defeat was really the soil God was utilizing to sow something new within you. So when you're feeling like life is just not fair, when you're feeling like you're getting broken while everyone else seems to be thriving, remember God is watching everything. Nothing gets past His notice. The balances will be made even. Your integrity will be rewarded. Your hard work will be honored. And sometimes the most perfect justice isn't about others being cut down. It's about you being raised up higher than you ever thought possible. Clutch to that reality. Have faith in the process. Don't stop before the miracle, because God's justice always comes through always. And when it does, you'll see why you went through the valley, why you weathered the storm, why you were tested. It wasn't to ruin you. It was to set you up for the justice, the blessing, and the victory that are already in transit. One of the biggest errors we commit when life isn't going well is we push back against it. We struggle against it. We say, this shouldn't be occurring. Deserve this. I can't cope with it. And the more we push back, the more weighty it becomes. The storm doesn't get lighter. It gets harder to carry because we've added the weight of our own resistance. There's another option. Rather than fighting, you can opt for resilience. And resilience doesn't equate to liking what is occurring. It doesn't equate to wanting it. It doesn't equate to asking for it. It simply equates to no matter what comes to your door, you will not be shattered by it. You will bend, you will stretch, you will evolve, but you will not break. Consider bamboo. During a storm, the oak tree, sturdy and unmoving, is the one that will crack. But the bamboo, it bends, it sways, it gives to the wind, but never cracks. That's resilience. That's how you stay on your feet when others get knocked down. Resilience isn't about fighting life's storms. It's learning to dance in the rain. Resistance now comes from fear. It's the idea that if something hurts presents itself, it can kill you. Resilience is born of faith. It's the rock-solid belief that whatever comes your way, you will get back up. That every failure holds within it the seed of a return. That every breakdown can be the entry to a breakthrough. If you live in resistance, you burn out. You wear yourself out from struggling against reality. But if you live in resilience, you gain energy where others break down. You might get knocked over. You don't remain on the ground. You stand up, and each time you stand stronger. I've witnessed individuals who lost everything, homes, businesses, loved ones, and yet returned to create a life greater than they could ever have imagined. Not because life was simpler for them, because they found resilience. They did not spend years muttering, this shouldn't have occurred. They muttered, it did occur. Now what am I going to do about it? Resilience is not about being insensitive to the pain. Resilience is that you feel it, you confront it, you refuse to bow to it. You keep on moving a step at a time, even if those steps are tentative. Resilience is not perfection. It's about grit. It's about saying, I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm not quitting. I'm not going to let this storm determine the rest of my life. And here's the thing, you already possess resilience within you. Consider everything you've already survived. Endured things that you believed would destroy you, and yet look at you. You've had heartbreaks, disappointments, losses, failures, and yet you're still here. That's resilience. Testament to your strength. So rather than push back against the storm, have faith in yourself to weather it. Rather than battle what you can't control, concentrate on what you can do, whom you can be, how you can develop, because resilience is the bridge between the pain you're enduring and the strength you're becoming. Life is going to challenge you. It's going to beat at your door with problems you never asked for. But those problems are also the training ground for your resilience. And the moment you cease to resist, the moment you decide to embrace resilience, the moment you cease to be a victim of your circumstances and begin to become the master of them. So the next time life punches you, don't struggle against it. Stand strong in it. Bend, don't break. Adjust, crumble, and recall each storm you ride out makes you stronger, smarter, and more unrelenting for the next part of your life. There's a time for every conflict when your power is depleted. You've pushed You've battled, you've done everything you know to do, and still, the mountain hasn't shifted. That's the moment when most people collapse. That's the moment when people say, I can't anymore. And if all you rely on is your own strength, sooner or later, that moment will break you. But there's another source of power, one that can't be depleted, and that's faith. Faith is gasoline that propels you when your gas tank is on empty. Faith is what says, move forward when every part of your body is yelling, quit. Faith is what tells you that you're not alone in the fire, that you're going through, that there's a higher hand that's leading you even when you can't see where you're going. Faith doesn't suggest you'll never be afraid. It doesn't suggest you'll never question things. It doesn't suggest you'll ever know everything. What faith means is that even in the midst of the fear, even in the midst of the unknown, you will believe, you will trust that this hurt has purpose, that this valley will end, that there is a light after the darkness. I've met people who lost everything. The only reason they didn't lose themselves is because of faith. They didn't know how things would turn around, but they believed they would. That belief, that trust, gave them the strength to take one more step, and then another, until one day they realized the storm had passed and they were still standing. Faith is not ignoring reality. It's not pretending the hurt doesn't happen. It's looking at the reality of your circumstances and still believing in a greater reality, that what you see in front of you is not all there is, that what you're going through now is not the end of the story. When your belief becomes your fuel, challenges become possibilities. A closed door isn't rejection, it's redirection. A setback isn't punishment, it's preparation. Belief takes the things that appear to be endings and makes them the very beginnings of something new. And here's the wonderful part. Faith is not a requirement to be perfect. Require the type of faith that never falters. You only require enough to keep going. Even a mustard seed-sized faith, small and vulnerable, can get you through. Because faith is not measured by how much you believe. It's about the resilience of the one you are believing in. Now, you may be sitting here thinking, I don't know that I have that kind of faith. But let me tell you, you do. You've been exercising faith your whole life. Each time you sat down in a chair without checking to see if it would support you, each time you got into a car, trusting the person who was operating it, you had faith. If you can have that sort of faith in people, in things, in situations, you can have it in God who never fails. The more you exercise it, the more it grows. Faith is a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets. It may feel wobbly, unsure at first, but just keep resting against it. Keep nourishing it with prayer, thanksgiving, with letting the memory of how far you've already gone sink deep into your soon. Faith won't only be something you possess. It will be the very energy that propels your life forward. So when life attempts to shatter you and your strength dwindles, don't quit. Dig deeper. Draw from that reservoir that never runs dry. Let faith be your gasoline, because when you walk by faith, you cease to be constrained by what you can see, and you begin to be driven by what you believe. And that is the type of fuel that can propel you through any storm and directly into your destiny. One of the quickest ways to burn out in life is to exhaust all your energy attempting to control things that were never in your control to begin with. How many of us have spent nights, weeks, years, even fixating on something another person said or did, replaying it over in our mind, wondering how to get them to change, how to get the result to be different. And yet, no matter how much you worry, you can't redo what's already been done. You can't dictate what people decide to do. You can't dictate the storm that's approaching. You can't dictate the economy, the politics, or the past. This is the truth. You can always control yourself, your attitude, your response, your choices. Those are yours. And when you give up trying to control the things you can't control, begin to master what's within you. That's when everything starts to change, because true power is not about controlling the world. It's about controlling yourself in the midst of the world. Consider this. Two individuals can experience the same crisis, the same loss, the same setback, and one is broken and the other is stronger. It isn't the situation, it's what they did with it. One lost their power by seeking to control beyond what they could. The other reclaimed their power by saying, I can't control the storm. I can control how I walk through the storm. You can't dictate whether people are going to hurt you or not, but you can dictate whether you allow that hurt to define you. You can't dictate the economy, You can dictate how you evolve, how you innovate, how you situate yourself to ascend. You can't dictate the length of the valley, but you can dictate whether you trudge through it in despondency or in resolve. Let me tell you something strong control is clarity. When you concentrate on what you can control, suddenly you cease to waste energy on things that sap you. You cease to pursue the impossible and begin to construct the possible. You shift from being powerless to being empowered because you know, I might not be able to alter everything, but I can always alter something. When you own your thoughts, you decide if fear controls your life or if faith does. When you own your words, you decide if you talk defeat or you talk possibility. When you own your habits, form your future one decision at a time. Most of the pain we suffer does not come from what occurs, but from what we tell ourselves about it. If you say to yourself, this is the end, never make it through this, then that is your reality. But if you say to yourself, this hurts, but only for a little while, I'm still here and I still have options, then even in the darkest time, you discover light. So I want to ask you this, what's within your power at this moment that you've been neglecting? Perhaps you can't alter the betrayal, but you can decide on forgiveness and reclaim your peace. Perhaps you can't alter the diagnosis, but you can decide on gratitude for each day you get to live. Perhaps you can't alter the economy, but you can decide to hone your skills, innovate, and seek new opportunities. You refuse to give power to what you can't control, and you bet big on what you convert chaos to clarity, desperation to determination. That's when you reclaim your power. Life will always throw you stuff that you can't control, but if you control your response, if you control your mind, your decisions, your attitude, you become untamable. Because storms don't determine your fate. Decisions do. And that's something you will always be able to control. Fear is the most powerful force in life. It has the ability to bring you to a standstill. It can shrink your dreams, quiet your voice, and trap you in a rut where nothing ever changes. And here's the thing about fear. It doesn't just whisper and go away. No, it keeps appearing again and again. Time you're about to step forward, every time you're about to grow, every time you're about to break through, it shows up louder, telling you, don't risk it. Don't try. Move. And if you continue to listen to that voice, fear becomes a vicious cycle. You hold back, you lose the moment, you regret it. And next time opportunity knocks, the voice is even louder. Before long, fear isn't just preventing you from advancing in one area. It becomes the backdrop to your life. But here's the reality: fear is a deceiver. Fear guarantees security, but what it actually gives you is restriction. It makes you believe that staying away from the agony of failure will save you, when in fact it deprives you of the pleasure of living on the edge. Escape pain by succumbing to fear. You just exchange one type of pain for another. The agony of failure is replaced by the agony of regret, and regret weighs more. So how do you stop the cycle? Stop fear by waiting for it to go away. You stop fear by pushing through it. Fear doesn't depart before you take action. It departs because you take action. The very second that you step forward, even when your knees are quaking, you begin to undermine fear's hold, because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in the face of fear. Reflect on it. All of your life's breakthroughs occurred when you walked through fear. The first time you asserted yourself when your voice was shaking. The first time you risked taking a chance on something unknown. First time you took a risk of failing in order to learn. All of those instances took courage, not comfort. And here's the lovely part: fear grows best in darkness, but it withers in the light of faith. When you shine light on it, when you say, I'm afraid, but I'm not letting go, fear is destroyed. That's why faith and fear will not fit in the same place, because faith always pushes out fear. Some of you have been living in cycles of fear for years. Fear of failing, fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. And every time life gave you an opportunity, you froze. Let me tell you something. You are stronger than the fear that's been holding you. You've just forgotten. And the way you remember is by taking the next step, even if you're still afraid. Shattering the pattern of fear does not mean you will never feel fear. It means fear no longer dictates the course of your life. It means that you hear the voice, but you don't follow it. You listen to it. You walk anyway, and each time you do, the voice becomes weaker and your faith becomes stronger. So the next time fear says to you, you can't, respond with, watch me. The next time it speaks softly and says, What if you fail? Say, then I'll learn, I'll grow, and I'll try again. That's how you break the cycle, not by sitting around waiting for fear to vacate, but by not allowing it to get the upper hand. Because when you refuse to let fear tell your story, you begin living the life you were made to live. And that life, the one that exists beyond fear, is the one in which your strength, calling, and freedom reside. Pain alone doesn't cause growth. Pain alone only hurts. What produces growth is what you do with that pain. You observe pain is energy. It's raw, powerful, uncompromising energy. And you have a choice. You can let it deplete you, or you can learn how to direct it. You can allow it to shatter you, or you can turn it into strength. Some of the toughest individuals you will ever know aren't tough because everything came easy to them. They're tough because everything was difficult, and they chose to take their hurt and use it as fuel. They let it fuel their building, their rising, their battle for something more. That heartache, that betrayal, that loss, it didn't destroy them. It was the fire that burned their excuses, their fears, limitations. I've seen people turn the pain of abuse into a passion for helping others heal. I've seen people turn the pain of poverty into the drive to create abundance, not just for themselves, but for generations to come. Seen people take the pain of rejection and use it as fuel to become unstoppable in their purpose. That's the difference. Pain can bury you or pain can build you. The decision is yours. When you use pain, you cease to wonder, why did this occur to me? And you begin to affirm, because this occurred to me, I will rise. Because this occurred to me, I will be stronger. Because this occurred to me, will ensure it wasn't wasted. Pain is the very proof that you are being equipped for something greater than what you can see at the moment. Here's the change. Don't flee from pain. Lean in. Listen to it. Ask it, what are you here to show me? What strength are you attempting to awaken in me? Because pain is always a messenger. It's there to crack the shell of who you are, so the strength of who you can be has space to emerge. Now, using pain doesn't suggest faking that it hurts. It doesn't suggest ignoring your emotions. It suggests respecting the pain, but not letting it be where the story ends. It suggests taking all that fuel, all that heartache, anger, sorrow, disappointment, and using it to drive action, to drive growth, to create something worthwhile. Reflect on your life. Your biggest breakthroughs happen after seasons of suffering. You did not know it then, but the loss made way for something better. Rejection steered you onto the path of righteousness. The failure brought humility, polish, and lessons that prepared you for the next level. That's pain turned into power. When you get to harness pain this way, nothing can hold you back. Because pain will arrive, life will see to it. But if every time it arrives, you decide to employ it rather than get lost in it, become impenetrable, you no longer fear pain because you understand its fuel. You understand it's building your strength, your edge, your resolve. So if you are hurting now, don't merely endure it, use it. Harness it. Allow it to remind you of yourself and what you are truly capable of. Allow it to be the flame that burns bright for your next chapter. Because the reality is that some of the most profound pain you have ever endured will one day be the deepest well of strength you have ever possessed. Pain is your prison, or pain is your power. Your choice. If you do choose to use it, if you do choose to use it to rise above, that pain won't only define you. It will unleash the strongest, boldest, powerful version of you that you've ever known. No one is alone in life. No one. You can be tough. You can be tough. You can have complete belief in yourself. If you're surrounded every day by voices that bring you down, people who suck the life out of you, or situations that keep you small, eventually it will break you. Why one of the most important decisions you'll ever make is this: who you let accompany you when life attempts to crush you. Your tribe is important. The people around you are oxygen or poison. Either give life to your dream or they choke it. They lift you up higher or they bring you down lower. And if you're healing, if you're growing, if you're rising from the ashes of pain, you can't afford to keep dead weight. You can't afford to keep people around who don't believe in your comeback. Consider the most powerful people in history. Those strongest of them did not walk alone. They had a band of strength around them. Martin Luther King Jr. had a people behind him. Nelson Mandela had supporters who kept him going through the darkest hours. Even the most potent leaders you can think of always had people walking alongside them, reminding them of who they were when they began to forget. So the question I have for you is, who's got your back? When life knocks you down, who stands you up? When fear tries to bring you down, who reminds you of your faith? When your vision gets foggy, who helps you see straight again? Because the reality is, you can't elevate with people who are okay with remaining low. Sometimes the most difficult aspect of growth isn't the hurt. It's releasing the people who are no longer part of your future. It's understanding that some relationships were designed for a chapter, not the entire book. And it doesn't say anything about those people being wrong. It just says they can't go where you're going. You can love them, you can bless them, but you can't let them hold you back. Instead, you've got to surround yourself with strength, with individuals who remind you of your purpose when you feel like giving up, with individuals who notice the greatness in you when all you see is the suffering, with individuals who challenge you, stretch you, nudge you to grow, won't allow you to settle for anything less than the life you were meant to live. And strength isn't even in people. It's in the environments you surround yourself with. What are you listening to on a daily basis? What are you watching, reading, eating? Is it nurturing your faith or nurturing your fear? Is it giving you hope or hopelessness? Everything that you allow into your life is either making you stronger or making you weaker. Make your choices wisely. I can tell you this: the fights of life are too great to fight by yourself. You require a circle. You require mentors, friends, brothers, sisters, voices of truth and affirmation surrounding you. Because when life attempts to shatter you, there will be some days when your strength doesn't feel like it's sufficient. And in those days, the strength of your circle can hold you until you regain your footing again. Don't wait for the storm to form your circle. Build it now. Build it with people of faith, people of courage, people of resilience. Build it with people who speak life, not death, possibility, not limitation, victory, not defeat. And see how your own power grows when you're not walking alone. Because the truth is, you were never meant to bear the burden of this life on your own. Surround yourself with strength, and together you'll climb higher than you ever could alone. I don't care how shattered you feel today, how burdensome the burden is, dark the valley seems. Your chapter isn't finished. What you're experiencing today is a chapter, not the entire book. The error that so many people make is they approach a chapter of pain as if it's the end of their life. They turn a season of heartache into their identity. They turn a setback into a moment of failure, and they tell themselves it sets the course for their whole future. But listen to me, one chapter does not determine the ending. Greatest stories in history are filled with chapters of struggle, chapters of setbacks, chapters of almost giving up. But those weren't the last chapters, they were the turning points. The same is true for you. Whatever you're facing, it's not the final word. It's just the setup for what's coming next. Think about every great comeback you've ever seen. Athletes who came back from injury, entrepreneurs who rose after bankruptcy, leaders who found their voice after being silenced. Makes their story powerful isn't that they never struggled. It's that they refused to let the struggle be the end. They turned the page. They kept writing. They kept going. Perhaps that's the reminder you need today. Because just because you've been knocked down doesn't mean you're defeated. Just because you've been betrayed doesn't mean you're not lovable. Just because you've failed doesn't mean you're a failure. Your story is still being written, and the best pages are the ones you haven't turned yet. God's justice, resilience, faith, strength, they're not abstractions. They're the tools in your hand right now to write the next chapter of your story. And the beautiful thing about life is that no matter how many chapters you've already lived, you still hold the pen. You still get to decide what happens next. Perhaps this is the chapter in which you finally overcome fear. Perhaps this is the chapter in which you use your pain and turn it into power. Perhaps this is the chapter in which you surround yourself with the people who support you and figure out how much stronger you are than you ever knew. Perhaps, just perhaps, this is the chapter that will be someone else's testimony to their own future. You see, when you won't quit, when you won't let the story end in the valley, your life becomes proof to others. You are the living evidence that however dark it may seem, there is light at the end of the tunnel. However broken you may be, healing is possible. However painful the pain, is purpose beyond it. And that's why you mustn't give up. Not now, not here, because your story isn't about you. It's about all the other people who will one day read your life and say, if they made it through, maybe I can too. So listen, the page is turning. The pen remains in your grip. Don't let failure, fear, or pain write the ending. Don't give it to individuals who attempted to shatter you. Leave halfway through your book. Write the next chapter with strength. Write it with faith. Write it with courage. Because the truth is, your story doesn't end. Chapter that's yet to come, the redemption, the breakthrough, the victory, that'll be the one you'll look back on and say, that's when things changed. That's when I figured out who I truly was. When life attempted to destroy me, but God made me stronger, undefined end. When that chapter is penned, it won't be your story alone. It'll be a story that will encourage the world